In this video, we will see a simple explanation of electrocardiogram as given in your NCERT book. So ECG is a graphical representation of electrical activity of heart during a cardiac cycle. It represents how your heart functions, like the conduction from SA node to AV node to the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. So this pathway of conduction actually after this path of conduction there is contraction and relaxation of your atrium and ventricles, right? So the pathway of electrical signals is denoted by this ECG. If it is normal, like the pattern will be like this. If it is abnormal, there are many patterns, but for you in this level the normal pattern alone is discussed. So let us see what PQRST denotes. So how they record ECG? A patient is connected to a machine with 3 electrical leads, one to each wrist and to the left ankle. So that is how they record ECG. For a detailed evaluation of heart function, multiple leads are connected to the chest region. Here we will talk about a standard ECG. Each peak in ECG is identified with a letter from P to T. The P wave represents the electrical excitation or depolarization of atria. So P denotes atrial depolarization. Depolarization means excitation. So the electrical signal is given. It starts from the SA node. So after atrial depolarization, after some time atrial systole will begin. Contraction of the atrium will begin. So the QRX complex represents depolarization of ventricles. So this denotes, QRS complex denotes ventricular depolarization. After Q starts, the ventricular systole will begin after some time. So that is what they are discussing here. The P wave represents the electrical excitation or depolarization of atria, which leads to the contraction of both the atrium. And then you have the QRS complex representing the depolarization of the ventricles, which initiates ventricle contraction. The contraction starts shortly after Q and marks the beginning of systole. So to understand what is systole and diastole, refer to our video on cardiac cycle. To repeat it, P denotes atrial depolarization, QRS complex denotes ventricular depolarization, atrial systole starts after P, and sometime after Q your ventricular systole starts. Where atrial relaxation, that is atrial repolarization, coincides with your ventricular depolarization. It is hidden within this QRS complex. Then the T wave, the last wave, okay. The T wave represents the return of the ventricles from the excited to the normal state, which is also known as ventricular repolarization. It is return from the excited state to the normal state. The end of T wave marks the end of systole. So till here the ventricle is in a contracted state, systole, after which the ventricles relax, repolarization happens and diastole starts. So obviously, by counting the number of QRS complex that occurs in a given period of time, one can determine the heartbeat rate of an individual. Since the ECGs obtained from different individuals have roughly the same shape for a given lead configuration, any deviation from this shape indicates a possible abnormality or disease. Hence, it is of great clinical significance. So, by counting QRS complex, that is, by counting the number of times ventricle undergoes systole or contraction, you can tell the heart rate of the person. For per minute, by counting it on a ECG paper, this wave repeats. After T, again a P wave will start, a QRS T, again P, QRS T, it continues in a ECG paper. That is how they record it. So by counting number of QRS complex per minute, you can tell the heart rate of the person. So to revise again, a simple ECG has a P wave followed by QRS. I'll draw it properly. You have P wave followed by QRS. Then you have T. P denotes atrial depolarization, after which atrial systole starts or contraction. QRS denotes ventricular depolarization or excitation. D denotes excitation, that you remember. And after Q starts, you have ventricular, after some time you have ventricular systole. Then finally T denotes ventricular repolarization. So at the end of T, you have ventricular diastole starting. Till this you will have ventricular systole. T marks the end of T wave, marks the end of systole. So these are the high yield points you need to remember for MCQs. See you soon with the MCQ discussion video.